Welcome back to episode 92 of the ATD Baseball Podcast. I apologize if I'm coming out with this intro a little sluggish and not that much energy. I've been sitting in front of a TV all weekend watching Dodgers and college football. It's kind of disgusting how much football I've watched this weekend, but everything's good. Dodgers looks like they're going to take 3 out of 4 from Arizona. Hopefully that doesn't come back to bite me in the ass in the next 20 minutes. But we'll get into all that. We got some things that we want to discuss today. Same cast of characters as always. Kyle, how are you doing today?
Doing great, man. I'm still on that high from last week.
I can imagine.
Yes. So I'm doing fantastic. We're starting to get into that whole touring wedding venues.
Ooh.
We just
okay.
Yeah. We got our first out of the way
Yankee
today.
Stadium?
That was a thought, but yet again, the missus probably isn't going to go
Yes.
for that. So understandable. I get it. I totally understand. But no, we did that today, and then we have a bunch coming up in the next 2 weeks.
Hey.
So yes, it's crazy, man. Crazy stuff. But flipping over to the baseball side of things, my Yankees are kind of killing me a little bit. Not really taking advantage of the teams that they should be, and it's tough. It's not fun to see, especially with how close this race is with Baltimore. But obviously, we'll get into that. Melo, how are you, man?
I'm doing good, and I apologize for not me asking about your wedding stuff when we first hop on here.
It's all good, man.
I'm so full of myself and inconsiderate. I'm here. Did you see the SC game yesterday? Fucking Dodgers are here, and I didn't even bother asking about your wedding plans and ideas. I do want to ask you this: Is she
Okay.
is she looking like? Does she want a big wedding? Does she want like a decent sized wedding? Because obviously you have a say so in this also. I don't want her to forget that. Because I mean, guys at home, let's not kid ourselves. Wedding day is for her. It is. It's her.
It is.
But it's also your day too, and you have a say so in a lot of things. However, is she looking? Is she looking at like a big place that she wants to do it, or she's kind of keep it small? Like, well, what? I know you only went one time, but have you been able to pick up on that yet?
Yeah, I have a little bit. A lot of what we're going for is kind of like I would say medium sized, very very intimate kind of thing. Small, kind of cute,
There you go.
those kind of
Oh,
things.
that's good.
But no, we kind of discussed, and obviously we'll find out more as these tours go on. But yeah, I mean, I'm trying my best here, man. As you just said, men, we're not too big onto this.
No.
We don't know what the hell we're doing. And my girlfriend, or my fiance,
There
I
you
should say,
go.
in particular, is very planned, organized. She's very organized. Me, on the other hand, I'm very go with the flow. I'm cool with whatever happens. So she's kind of, I'm helping where I can, but no, she's taking charge on this, and we'll see what she comes up with, and obviously I'll keep you guys updated.
There we go. See, this is gonna be nice. I like this. You need to keep us updated with your plans. When you get to the food,
Yes.
you give me a call. You give me a call. Because
Okay.
even though it is your guys' day, and I know what you're probably thinking, like, Melo, you have no say-so in the food. Hold on a second. I do speak for the guests that will be attending this wedding also. And, of course, this has nothing to do with me getting a good meal and being happy with it. I'm always for the guest. But whenever
Of course.
you get to the food tasting options, you give me a call and let me see that goddamn menu, and we'll take it from there.
Of course, man. I have to get my groomsmen involved in this
Yes.
somehow. So I will definitely be giving you a
I
call.
recommend the steak and lobster or the spaghetti. No, I'm just kidding. No. It's your guys' day. I'm just kidding, guys. Like, Whatever you guys choose, completely fine with me. Melo, it's not your day. Shut up. I know. It's okay.
You're good, man. No worries.
But to answer your question, yeah, I'm doing good. The Dodgers, believe it or not, Freddie Freeman just hit another home run. That's his fourth this series, and he's hit one in every series. He's hit one, yeah, every series, every game this series. Wow, that took a lot to get out of. They're up 10-3 right now, I believe. Yeah, 10-3. And it looks like they're going to take 3 out of 4 from Arizona, which is very encouraging. Because not only are you going to have a 6-game lead going into the final 3 weeks of the season, you are going to have the tiebreaker on Arizona. So, I mean, this is worse. This is disaster. And I don't think it's going to happen. But if for some reason both of these teams in 3 weeks, when we're done with the regular season, are tied with the same record, Dodgers have the tiebreaker because they took the season series by 1 game. And I'm very happy and pleased about that. Side note, saw USC get a big-time win against LSU in Vegas. I wish I was there. But it fight on. That was a great win. Oh, it was nice to see that yesterday. But this is not a football show. And lastly, I want to, before we get into stuff that we want to talk about here, and usually we get into it a lot quicker, but this needs to be addressed. When the Dodgers won, I believe it was Friday night. Dodgers were at 82 wins. And for the first time in Shohei Ohtani's history of his career, he will finish the season above 500. That has never happened in the 7 years that he has been in the majors. So the Dodgers can lose the rest of their games from here on out. Shohei Ohtani will finish above 500 for the first time in his career, and I feel like that should be celebrated as much as this milestone that he's going on for 50-50. Took 7 years to finally be on a competitive winning ball club, and he will finish above 500, and I think that's beautiful. Finally, about damn time the best player in the sport is on a competitive winning ball club.
I have to agree with you. I think this kind of tells a lot about, the Angels as a franchise. And, you had Mike Trout and Shohei Ohtani. I don't care about anything else. For the fact that you had those two generational players, especially with Ohtani, man. I mean, Trout's obviously towards the, not saying he's still not one of the best players in baseball. He's not. He is. My bad. But he's getting to that tail end. As much as we hate to say it, he is. So, for the fact that you had these two guys, and you couldn't do anything with it, it kind of tells a lot about the Angels. And it tells a lot about the Dodgers. The Dodgers are here to win, and they're here to do whatever they can to put the best product on the field. And that's what they did when they signed Ohtani. So it's good for him, man. Obviously, the sport's better when Ohtani's doing his thing. And seeing Ohtani in the postseason this year, I think it's going to be a beautiful thing. It's getting to see what he gets to do. First taste of postseason baseball. If it's anything like the World Baseball Classic, I think we're in for a treat.
I agree. We'll continue to touch on the Dodgers a little bit later, but the topics that we want to discuss today: Chicago Cubs and the Detroit Tigers making playoff pushes. And they're a lot closer than you think, especially the Cubs. They're a lot closer than you think. So we'll touch upon that. And then lastly, I hate that we have to do this, but the Chicago White Sox. They just broke their franchise record for most losses in a single season, and they are on track to break the 1962 New York Mets single season loss, which is a record. I don't have it on the top of my head right now. I think it's a 125, I think, something like that. Something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll touch upon that. But yeah, this will be should be a quick, easy show. You mentioned it. There hasn't been that much happening in the last couple weeks, which I think is a good thing because we got a postseason coming up in a few weeks, and obviously that's going to be crazy. But we'll just jump right into it here. Cubs and the Tigers are both making playoff pushes. As we currently stand right now, Chicago Cubs are only 3 games back of the final spot in the National League, and the Detroit Tigers are 4.5 out the final spot. Detroit is chasing, just for the last spot, Detroit is chasing Boston and Kansas City, and the Cubs are chasing Atlanta and the Mets. Which, by the way, glad I mentioned the Mets. I am going to take my victory lap here for just a quick second. I said in February that the Mets would be in contention for the final wild card spot going into September. And as of right now, they are a game behind the Atlanta Braves for that last spot. I was mocked. I was said I was crazy. I was right again. I'm not right very often, but when I'm right, number one, you'll hear about it. Believe me, you will hear about it because nobody gives me credit for it. And number two, it's not always in World Series predictions or MVPs. If you've noticed, I like doing those little fun stuff. Like, hey, can the Mets just play competitive? Can they be competitive going to September? Is that too much to ask for a team like that? And when you look at the pieces, they're not horrible. So I'm glad I jumped on that right away, and I'm glad that was able to stick.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, I don't have as much props here as you do because you kind of took the forefront on this, but I did agree with you.
Yes, you did.
I was behind the Mets. I was behind the Mets since the beginning, since we did the preseason projections, and you and I were laughed at. We were kind of said we were crazy. It's not going to happen. People had Miami in front of them. And yes, maybe a little bit of this has to do with the Braves and their injuries. I get it. But, hey, the fact that we were able to predict that into a baseball season, baseball's hard to predict, man. It's very, very hard. Anything can happen in this sport. And for the fact that, I'll jump on that victory lap with you because I feel pretty good.
As you should, because
I feel pretty good about that.
Like I said, you were on board immediately. And just look at how the Mets season started. They were not great starting the season. And it looked like for a second that the Mets were going to be in White Sox territory there for a minute. But turned it around, had a good summer, and now they're in the middle of a wild card pennant race. And that's good for them.
Yeah.
But back to the task at hand here. Which team has a better shot of getting that last spot? Chicago, the Cubs, or the Detroit Tigers?
I'm gonna have to, as well as the Cubs are playing, I'm gonna have to go with Detroit. And the reason why I'm going Detroit here is because I think Atlanta, and as many injuries as they have had to overcome, I totally get it. This is still a good ball club, and we tend to forget that. They're an experienced ball club, and they're a team who's led by a very good manager. And I still think the Braves can end up winning games. That's what it comes down to. And I'm giving the edge to the Mets here. And we kind of talked about the Mets a little bit there. The Mets are a good ball club, and Frankie Lindor, dude. I mean, we touched on him in the past with the whole Ohtani conversation, and as much as we kind of bashed him, is what it seemed like, because we were comparing him to Shohei Ohtani. When you compare somebody to Ohtani, you're probably going to end up bashing them in some sort of way. But Lindor is having a fantastic season. He is almost putting this Mets team on his back, and he's kind of riding with it. And the Mets are finding ways to win ball games, man. I think they're a really good team, and I have to give the edge to the Mets here over Chicago. Not taking anything away from Chicago because I think they're a good ball club, and I think they're playing very well right now. But I think Detroit, I think they just, with the teams that they're chasing, as high as we were on Kansas City, I still am. They're still a young ball club, though. They're not necessarily there quite yet in my eyes, but I still think they're a very good ball club that can make some noise in the future. And Boston, I think they're in a gauntlet of the AL East. I'm not necessarily, looking at their schedule for the rest of the year, but I have to think that there's some AL East opponents in there. So for me, I feel like Boston's been playing well too. But I definitely think Detroit has a not an easier way to the postseason, but I think easier than Chicago's if we're kind of comparing the two. That's the way I'm going to go with this.
So I have the schedules in front of me for both teams. You tell me which one sounds harder as we come into a month of the season. So I'll start with Chicago's. 3 at home against Pittsburgh. 3 at home against the Yankees, which I'll be tuning into that. That'll be fun.
Yeah.
Then they got to come out here to LA. 3 with the Dodgers. On the road, 3 against Colorado. And then they come home for 3 against Oakland. 4 against Washington. Out on the road against Philly. And then they finish the season with Cincinnati. That was the Cubs schedule. Now let me give you the Tigers schedule. 3 in San Diego, starting today. On the road in Oakland. Then they come home, 3 against the Rockies, and then 3 against Baltimore. They go back on the road for 3 against Kansas City, which, if they keep winning, that could be a fight for that last spot. And then they go on the road, back on the road, Baltimore, and then they finish their season with Tampa and the White Sox, who, listen, I know the White Sox are horrible, but do you honestly believe that, and we'll get to this later, don't answer it, but you don't think those players in that White Sox clubhouse are going to be playing for pride that weekend? Yes, they have no shot of making the postseason, but do they really want to be known as the worst team ever in the history of baseball? I don't think so. And sure, they're going to be a million games out of first place, and they're going to be nowhere near the postseason. They're already eliminated. But I do think that they will be playing for pride. So
yeah. So okay. So
yeah.
real quick, I have to stick with my answer here. I think Detroit, especially after reading those schedules. I mean, Chicago. They got the Yankees in there. They have the Dodgers and the Phillies. Arguably 3 of the top 4 teams left in this league. So for me, I have to go with Detroit. Yeah, I understand you play 6 games against Baltimore in there, which that was the 4th team that I'm kind of thinking of here. But no, I have to stick with Detroit here, and I really think Detroit's pitching staff can kind of push this forward. And I think they have enough bats in there to kind of, overlap Boston. I don't know about Kansas City. I'm very interested to see that Kansas City series. I will say that. But no, I have to go with Detroit here. I think they have a young group of guys. Obviously, their pitching staff is led by Scuball. And then you got guys like Riley Green, Spencer Torkelson, guys who are trying to prove their place in this league. Yeah, I have to go with Detroit here for sure.
Yeah, I think Detroit. But I would not sleep on Chicago, though, either, because, like I said...
Oh, no.
I said, this Mets team, and as much as they've kind of been my second team in the National League this year with the predictions and wanting them to beat on the Padres and the Diamondbacks, they have been very hot and cold. They look good for 2 games, and then they struggle for the next 3. That's kind of been the theme, and it reflects their record because they're only 9 games above 500.
Yeah.
And like I said, I do think, and I kind of hope I'm wrong, but I do think the Braves will hold serve, and I do think that they will get that final spot. But don't sleep on Chicago. I'm going to be very interested to see now in these next coming weeks. Especially this week. We'll keep a tab on it, and we'll get back to it a week from now. I want to see if Chicago has made, either of these teams really, Detroit or Chicago, if they've made any progress. And we'll see. Because we're in September now. You're running out of games. So if you want to make any kind of a postseason push, it has to be now. Because we're in September. There's only a handful of games left now. So, we'll see. It's fun. I didn't think Detroit and Chicago was going to be in the mix here in the final month. I thought it was going to be Atlanta and the Mets fighting for it, and I thought Kansas City was just going to be flip-flopping with the Guardians and Minnesota. So, and Boston in there too. So that creates some chaos, and that's definitely good for baseball. Nothing wrong with that.
Oh yeah.
So, as long as my team's not involved, that's fine. As long as my team isn't involved. Moving on. The Chicago White Sox.
We have to do it.
We have to. They just broke their franchise record for most losses in a season. They're currently 31 and 108. They are on.
That's crazy.
Yeah, they are on track to break the Mets' loss record in history, which is 40 and 120. They're on track to do it. And looking at their schedule, I mean, I think they can find a way to squeeze some wins out of here. I'm trying to be nice.
Mm-hmm.
So their schedule is 3 with Baltimore, 3 with Boston, all on the road, and then they come home for Cleveland and Oakland, and then they make a West Coast trip to Anaheim and San Diego, which I might have to check that at one out in Anaheim. That might be for the record.
Yeah.
I want to check that out. And then they have 3 against Anaheim at home, and then they finish the season, like I mentioned, with Detroit. Kyle, do you think they will break the single season loss record of 120?
Yeah, so I also have their schedule up right now, and I'm looking at it. They start, second game of a 3-game set against Baltimore tonight. This is tough, man. This is very tough because you go to Baltimore. I don't think you're beating Baltimore. I don't think you're beating Boston or Cleveland. I think the only way for this team to squeeze out some wins is against Oakland, and that's even pushing it.
Oakland's not a pushover team this year. I know the record doesn't reflect that, but they're in these games, a lot of them.
They are. And they have some guys out there. Lawrence Butler is putting on a show in Oakland right now. And you have the consistent guy in Brent Rooker every single night. Zach Geloff is starting to turn into a guy. They have a team. And Seth Brown is still there, too. They have a team that they're building around. And it's very hard for me to say that Chicago can squeeze a win out of here. I believe that the only places that you can maybe find some wins is against Los Angeles. Sorry, Anaheim. You have 6 games. You have 6 games against Anaheim to finish out the year. I think if you're going to squeeze a game or 2 out of there, maybe a few more, it's going to be there. I think they break this record. I do. As much as I hate to say it, I really do. That schedule is tough. Well, of course, it's going to be tough for them. They're the worst team in baseball. I like I said, the only kind of wins that I can see them squeezing out is against Anaheim, and that's even pushing it. So I think they break this record. I really do. I mean, this team is a piss poor team. Seeing this team, I tuned into a few White Sox games this year, and as much as I hate on the Yankees for fundamental bullshit all the time, my God, I'm glad I'm not a White Sox fan. It's terrible to watch. It really is. At the end of the day, I think they break this record. I don't see them squeezing out enough wins. I really don't.
I'm with you as the sun is getting in the way here. Yeah, I think they're going to break that record. I would love to talk to a Met fan who's been around for a long time, because they have to have a dog in the fight too. Do they
Yeah.
Because the thing that has been so fascinating and kind of fun about the Mets is that people remember that was their very first season in baseball. 40 wins and 120 losses. And it turned into kind of this, hey, there's this other team in New York that, nobody's thinking about, but they're the Mets, we'll go check them out. They stink, but we'll watch them. And then you saw them blossom into, get some guys in there, and they won the World Series in 1969. But I would just wonder for that old Met fan that has been around for years watching this team and following it on a daily basis. I really wonder, do they want to see the White Sox break this? I really do. Because that's been part of the charm of the Mets franchise. Hey, they have the single season, they have the worst season in MLB history, record-wise. I wonder if the Met fan that's been around for years, do they want to see that broken, or do they want to kind of keep that for their own? I really wonder. I don't think any White Sox fan wants to see them break it. I really don't. Because, I mean, the White Sox history is not that great either, but they've had some good moments in there, and they've had some great players walk through there. But to answer the question, I do think they are going to break it, unfortunately. I hope they don't, because those are still major league guys in that clubhouse.
Yeah.
And I would think pride. And listen, I'm not saying they're not trying to win baseball games. They're obviously trying. They just don't. They're just not that good.
Yeah.
They're not that talented.
Yeah.
But I really want to give them the benefit of the doubt. But I don't think they're gonna. I think they're gonna break it, unfortunately, and it sucks.
I mean, it really does, and I feel for the White Sox fan. I do. This team has some good players on it. This isn't just a team that's kind of, just complete dog shit when you look at the roster. They have some guys in there. Garrett Crochet, I mean, we've been talking about him all year. Andrew Benintendi he's a good contact hitter. He can still swing the bat. Luis Robert Jr., I think he's one of the most underrated players in baseball. It's just for the fact of they just don't have enough supporting cast around those guys. They're a young team, obviously in rebuild mode. It's tough, though, because as a White Sox fan, at least if I put myself in those kind of shoes, I don't see a direction with this team. And that's what sucks the most. I wouldn't care about this record. I wouldn't care about the losses. I wouldn't if there was some sort of sense of direction with this team. There's not. And that's what sucks. And as much as I said it in the past, I love the Oakland Athletics. I think they belong in Oakland. But they do have a sense of direction. Like we touched on it. They got a core group of guys in there who are starting to blossom into true major league players. And for that, and then, of course, the upcoming movement to Sacramento, and then they have Las Vegas in the future, they have some sort of sense of direction. And it's the same with the other rebuilding teams in this league. They do have a sense of where they're going to go at some point. But Chicago does not. And that's what's got to be the toughest for the White Sox fan. It seems like there's no light at the end of the tunnel, and I feel like it's just going to be the icing on the cake if they do end up breaking this record, which I think they will.
Yeah, we'll see. If they do want to break it, I will be probably going to the Angel game in a couple weeks, 1 o'clock on a Wednesday. If they want to do it then, hey, I wouldn't be opposed to that. Why not?
Yeah, see some MLB history.
For the
Why
wrong
not?
reason. All right, now to our teams, and then we'll get out of here. I'll start with the Dodgers.
Yeah.
Very impressive. Very impressive. They had a good homestand. They swept Seattle. They what did they do next? They took 2 out of 3 from Tampa. And they took 2 out of 3 from Baltimore. And now they're 3 outs away. They're up 11-3. I think they're going to win. But they're 3 outs away from taking 3 out of 4 from Arizona. Not to mention an Arizona team that has been hot since literally the beginning of May, if not the middle of May. And every time they're down, they seem to have an answer, which they almost did that a couple times this series. But luckily the Dodgers were able to withstand that and get a win. But very impressive. Listen, I don't want to hear any Diamondback fan tell me that, oh, well, this division doesn't mean anything anyways. Clearly it does. because the Diamondbacks were making a real good push at it a week ago. And you had every Dodger fan, including myself, doing their best not to panic because this division lead was in uncharted waters that we're not used to seeing. You know, a 3-game division lead, I'm not used to that. I'm used to this being 13, 10, 15, and it's over. But I don't want to hear that this division doesn't mean anything for Arizona. I know they showed that last year by getting to the World Series, but don't tell me it didn't mean anything this year, because they clearly did try, and they were pretty damn close. Now, it's not over. There's still games left. They can come back, but the Dodgers are going to have... They're technically going to have a 7-game lead after tonight, because not only they would be up 6 games, but now they would have the season series. So technically it's 7 with the tiebreaker. Very impressive. You can start to see it little by little that this team is starting to get ready for the postseason. Mookie Betts is having better ABs. Freddie Freeman's locked in right now. Shohei Ohtani's continuing to do his thing, and you're getting production out of the bottom of this order that you haven't seen all year. Will Smith is getting his swing back. Max Muncy continues to be a walk machine. If not, he's getting a base hit. Tommy Edman won the game for this team the other night with a big 2-out single to bring in 2 runs in the 9th inning. He's going to be a factor. Do I like the fact that Clayton Kershaw got hurt again? No. Sucks. But, you know, I really hate to be like that, but I think the Dodgers are better off without him. I really do believe that. And it sucks for me to say that, because I've seen Clayton Kershaw in every fashion. I saw him at the beginning of his career. I saw him in the prime of his career when he was winning Cy Young Awards, throwing no-hitters and winning MVPs. I've seen the postseason struggles and the heartbreak. I've also seen the very high, the 2020 World Series win. But wasn't really doing that great. He had maybe 2 good starts, and then kind of it's been kind of eh. And we can't throw him out there in a postseason game. I'm sorry, we can't. I'd rather take my chances with one of these young kids. I really would. But to get off of that, very impressive. Dodgers have definitely not put this division away. I'm not going to say that because there's still plenty of time for Arizona or even San Diego to make a last-minute push again. But if you're a Dodger fan, you got to feel really good about where this team is right now. I really believe that. You can see the pitching starting to get older. The bullpen's a little shaky still, but there's time. There's still a little bit of time to kind of fix that a little bit. But I was worried coming into this series. I was, because I didn't know how the Dodger team would treat it. I knew how Arizona was going to treat it. I knew that they would treat it like, hey, we're in a position, let's strike, let's take 3 out of 4, and we have a real division race going into the final 3.5 weeks of this season. And I've seen it happen before where the Dodgers are like, it's just another game. You know, I would have been very disappointed with a split, and I would have been very disappointed, obviously, if they would have got swept or if they would have lost 3 out of 4. They took 3 out of 4, and they reminded Arizona, like, hey, you know, we're still, the division still goes through us. Postseason, different story. But this NOS still goes through us, and if you're going to take it, you better play perfect, because if not, you have no shot. And I think the Dodgers showed that over the weekend. So very impressed. And they kind of gave themselves just a little bit of a cushion, which honestly some of these guys need to get ready for October. But super impressive. We got 2 in Anaheim. We'll be there tomorrow. And then they come back home for a 6-game homestand against the Guardians and the Cubs. So there you go. But that's what I have on the Dodgers. Very impressive.
Yeah, I have to reiterate everything you said about the Dodgers. I've been tuning in from afar. That's definitely, you have to be happy as a Dodger fan. Heading over to the Yankees side of things, I have a different tone. It's not great. I don't like what I'm seeing out of this team. This bullpen continues to be a liability, which is not great, especially this late into the season. This bullpen has been blowing games for us left and right, and I don't like it. Right now, we're currently tied with Baltimore for first place, when it shouldn't be that way, considering the fact that the Yankees just lost back-to-back series against Washington and St. Louis. That's not great. That's not what you want. I reiterated this a few weeks ago. There's no reason why this Yankees team should not win this division. With the schedule they had, they need to take care of business against teams that they have to. I'm okay with series wins, but series losses are unacceptable, and that's exactly what's been happening. You start a 3-game set in about an hour against Texas. Texas hasn't been great this year, but they're the reigning World Series champions, and that means something. This is a squad who, can give the Yankees a run for their money, especially if Washington and St. Louis can. So I don't necessarily like where the Yankees are at. They should not be tied for this division. They should be taking care of business, and that's not what's been happening. And Baltimore seems to be taking care of business where they have to stay afloat with the Yankees. But this has been the same tone and dance all season long with the Yankees and the Orioles. These two teams cannot seem to pull away from each other. So I'm going to go a different direction, and I'm going to put it here now, I think it's going to continue for the rest of the season up until September 24th to the 26th. I think that is what is going to determine who wins this division. It's a 3-game set against Baltimore at Yankee Stadium in the Bronx. So I think that's what it comes down to. It shouldn't, in my eyes. I think the Yankees should still pull away with this division, considering they have a 3-game set against Texas, which they have to win because Baltimore is in Chicago tonight against the worst team in baseball. So they need to take care of business against Texas. Then you go to Chicago to play the Cubs, then Kansas City, Boston, Seattle, Oakland, the 3-game set I just mentioned against Baltimore, and then you finish out your season at home against Pittsburgh. You should win this division still. That's what it comes down to. If you don't, it's your own fault, and you're going to have to play an extra set of games. So I still think they make the postseason. I don't see that becoming an issue because I don't see that being a thing, but I do see them potentially losing this division. And if that happens, they have nobody but themselves to blame. That's what it comes down to. The bullpen has not been great. Aaron Boone's been doing what he can. He's been using the relievers that he has, and it's just there wasn't enough at the deadline. Obviously, don't get me wrong, Jazz has been a hell of an addition. He's been doing his thing. I love seeing that. One last thing, kind of yet again another negative. September call-ups happen.
Oh, yeah.
You have a stud in the minor leagues who is tearing it up, and you are supposed to have the best players on your roster heading into September call-ups and heading into the postseason. The Yankees currently do not, with Jason Dominguez still in the wins down at AAA. It's unacceptable in my eyes. I don't see, as much, I say it every time. I say it all the time. I absolutely love Alex Verdugo. I do. I love him. I love him as a player. I loved him in Boston as much as I hate to admit it. I loved him in Los Angeles. I loved watching him come up. But when it comes down to it, you are in a year where you have to win. You have to be all in. And I'm sorry, but when Alex Verdugo is getting playing time, even Trent Grisham is getting playing time over Jason Dominguez, who is potentially your fourth or fifth best player on the team. That's what it comes down to. He really is. And I want him getting ABs in the postseason. I'm sorry. I don't care if he bats 189. Just throwing out a number. I don't care if he doesn't produce in the postseason. Because at least I know that every single player on this team belongs here. And the longer Jason Dominguez is in AAA, the longer this team is not serious about winning. And I'm sorry, but I don't know how you can't be serious in a Juan Soto walk year. You have to be, there's no guarantee. You have to be serious. And right now they're not. And it sucks to see. It really does. It just goes back to the whole service time manipulation. That's what it comes down to. And, obviously I hope that there's penalties for that, because that's exactly what this is. It's service time manipulation. They're trying to get another year out of Dominguez, which I understand. I do. This kid he is oozing with potential to be an MLB superstar. I get it. But when it comes down to it, you are in a Juan Soto walk year, and you have to be all in. Aaron Judge is having another hell of a season, which we don't know how many more of these we're going to get. Judge, we tend to forget, is going to be 33 next year. Garrett Cole's getting up there. He's likely going to opt out. These are things that you need to put into your head when you're making these decisions. But instead, Duke Dennis gets the call. Tell me who that is. I don't. It's just, it's kind of crazy to me that you're picking service time manipulation over a potential 28th World Series. That is crazy to me. They haven't won since 2009, and it kind of makes sense why. For reasons like this. You're not putting your best players on the team. I hope and pray that they call him up beforehand. He deserves it, obviously. Everybody knows the hype around this kid and what he can potentially do. And they're not giving him a fair shot. That's what it comes down to. It's service time manipulation, and I think it's bullshit. But, hey, I mean, there's still time in the season where you can call him up. But like I said, they're just trying to get another year out of Dominguez, which is it's mind-blowing to me. It's so crazy, considering the fact that you have Juan Soto and Aaron Judge in their primes. Garrett Cole is finally turning it around from his injury. He's had 3 nice starts in a row. I don't understand why the hell you would not want your best players on this team. It is crazy to me, and if Dominguez is not on this roster come October and come postseason time, they have nobody but themselves to blame for another fucked up postseason. That's all I have to say.
I think that's going to do it for episode 92. Seems,
I think so. I hate to be so negative.
I mean, you're being honest. That's the way I see it.
I am.
Being honest. But before we get out of here real quick, I should have mentioned this at the top, so that's bad on my part, but both of us want to send our thoughts and condolences to the Gaudreau family. Obviously everybody heard what happened over the weekend with him and his brother, Matthew. Horrible.
Yes.
I saw all the Twitter rumors, I think it was Thursday night, hoping it wasn't true. I'm like, damn, I hope this isn't true. And of course, I woke up Friday morning, saw the horrible report that it was true. Just condolences to the Gaudreau family. Horrible. I can't even imagine what that family has to go through right now. On a day too when their sister was supposed to have her wedding day.
And both of them were supposed to be in it. That's
terrible.
terrible.
So we, send our condolences their way, and I like to think that we're a fun show. We like to keep everything that happens in this world out of here. This is kind of our escape from all that. But listen, I don't think our audience has to worry about this, because I do think a lot of our audience is not above the age of 21 yet. But don't drink and drive, please. If you know you can't, if you're not in a good state of mind, or you don't drive, please. Drink responsibly. Get an Uber home. Call somebody. Call a relative. Call a family member. Call a friend. We've seen this way too many times. And it's broken millions of families. And it's broken the whole sports community with Johnny Gaudreau. So just again, thoughts and prayers their way. That's what I got.
Yes. Yeah, no, this was definitely a very, very heartbreaking situation. There's moments in the sports world where it kind of stops, We kind of witnessed that with Willie Mays and Orlando Cepeda, these kind of guys who are icons in these games. And These guys may not have been icons, but they were up and coming, man. In a sport where it's very dangerous. Hockey's a very dangerous sport, and for them to put their lives on the line every single night and go out there and just do the game that they love to do. It sucks. It really does. This topic really hits home for me personally. If you're drinking and you know that you can't drive, please don't. Just don't. We live in a world where we have mini computers at our hands. If you need to, you call somebody or you get an Uber. There's plenty of apps that you can use. And I'm sorry if I'm sorry, but a $20 Uber is a whole lot less detrimental than two lives being taken, especially when those two lives were so close to families. So that's what I have to say on it too. Thoughts and prayers.
And on that note, that'll be it for episode 92. We'll see you next Monday. Adios.